Okay, this lab that you guys just finished, I hope, this weekend and is due today, I'm going to put that off till tomorrow. Let's say that you had one that was like this. I'm not saying that that's an answer, but let's say that you got an equation like that for the daylight hours in Minnetonka. Okay? You get, if you try to graph this on your calculator, radians is so powerful that you can only graph this if you're in radians mode. It just won't work if you're in any other mode. Okay, so you try to graph that on the calculator, you have to be in radians mode. So my point, we're going to be in radians mode this whole time. So yes, every now and then I will refer to degrees. Why? Because you memorize the triangles as 30, 60, 90, not the pi over 3, pi over 6 triangle, right? Okay, so I said this is 30 degrees, but I don't want you to write that. I want you to write pi over 6. Awesome. Now, just like before, there's more than one way to get to this point. Do you remember before I was giving you problems back in the old system? Like I would say, okay, this spot right here, that is 1, 2, 3 pi over 4. And we would say, but actually you could say it this way, negative, well, let's see, how much of pi over 4 is right? This would be 4 pi over 4, so that'd be negative 5 pi over 4. It's the same exact thing as 3 pi over 4. They're equal. In the same way, polar, which I've got up here, polar, you can have the same exact point described a different way in polar. Do you get it if I say, hey, that's the same as 2 comma negative 11 pi over 6? Just think that through for a second. That's the same exact thing. Because negative 11 pi over 6 is the same angle as 30 degrees, which is the same as 1 pi over 6. All right. All right, let's see if you really caught that. I'm going to give you a new one. Let's say you had to get right here, and this is a 45-degree angle. And let's say this distance is 4. My question is, how would you say this point in polar, which is r comma theta? Well, the r is pretty easy. It's 4. Duh. Then it's just a matter of the theta, and you can't say 45. And you can't even say pi over 4. Check with the kid next to you and see if you get the same angle as they did. Raise your hand if you had that. Could I have marked it wrong if you had said the point was 4 comma negative 5 pi over 4? Nope, it's the same place. The question was, would there be any time where it wouldn't be correct? If the directions said you must use a positive theta, and yeah. So there are times, for instance, in your homework tonight, where they're going to give you a point, and then they say, I want you to give me the same exact point, except with a negative angle. And then they're going to get to this one, which is going to freak some people out. Now I want you to give me the same exact point, except use a negative r. What? Radiuses can't be negative. Trick question. No. In polar, they can be. Okay, would you agree that negative 4 has to be different than regular 4? So then it's going over here. would you agree that at a minimum, that there is a point over here that kind of goes with this other one, because it's straight line, it's like 180 degrees from it, there is some point down there. Just to clarify, the point down here is not -4, it's 4 comma something. Would you please find that point right there? 4 comma what? To start with, just do them the simple way, which is a positive r and a positive theta. But it's okay if you really want to give it a negative theta, you can. I know some people are going to say 4 comma negative pi over 4, totally okay. I know some people are going to say 4 comma a whole bunch of pi over 4s, 7 pi over 4, good. That's totally okay. Now, think of this as a reflection. Do you remember when we were doing like y equals x squared and we slap a negative on it? Remember what it does? It reflects it, right? So what if we wanted to take this point and reflect it over here? Then we could say this point could be thought of as the reflection of that point, or that point. I'm going to pick this one because they start out both positive, just to make my life a little simpler. I'm going to start with this one and put it over here and say that it's -4 comma 7 pi over 4. So you just put a negative on the r and it reflects it across the other side of the circle. To see if you really got that, there's a spot here at about 60 degrees. And let's say that our radius here is 7. What's this spot? And what's the spot across from it? I haven't actually asked you to reflect anything yet. Just find a spot and the spot across from it in polar coordinates. And by the way, in case this seems, I don't need to know this, actually this is one of those topics that the rumor was that that there was this on a recent ACT. I don't know if it was I don't think it was the most recent one, but at one point people were talking about polar being something that came up on an ACT test. So it can, just whether or not it actually did, who knows. People aren't supposed to talk about what happened on their ACT. You're not supposed to divulge what questions you got. So if polar was on the ACT, it wouldn't be too surprising because it's allowed. It's in the topics that are okay. All right. Did you come up with 7 comma, well, 60 is the same as pi over 3, right? Raise your hand if you had 7 comma pi over 3. Awesome. Down here, did you have also 7? It is. Don't be confused by that. That's +7. Don't think everything down here is like negative or something. No, it's not. 7 comma, well, what would this be? Well, a whole bunch of 60s. 1 pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, that's 3 pi over 3, so that'd be 4 pi over 3. Could have also written 7 comma, whatever the negative angle for this would be, -2 pi over 3. Sure, that's an okay way to describe that spot. Now, what if we want to transport it, though, from where it is now, we want it to shoot over there. Then it would be called, which part gets to be negative? The r. So now it's going to be -7. And just to keep it simple, I'm going to use the positive angle. But it would have been okay to use the negative angle too. like here, I'll write that in green as option B. I could have said this one reflected, -7 comma negative, that's supposed to be a 3, 2 pi over 3. Do you remember that concept of coterminal? There's a lot of ways to say a spot. That's what we're doing here. There's a lot of ways to say that spot. Okay. Then the last concept that you have to get is there's the old way and the new way. Would you agree if I put a triangle here and I said this is 1 and 1, you'd know that side, wouldn't you? What is that side? Square root of 2. So my question is, name this spot the old way. Now name it the new way. The new way is r comma theta. The old way is x comma y. Don't overthink the x comma y. It's as simple as you might think. Okay, CA in the back corner. Tell me, did you figure out this angle? Also known as pi over 4. Very good. And that's going to go here. And what was our radius? Say it one more time. It's not 2 squared. Square root or root 2. There you go. Okay, there it is. That's r comma theta. But what's the x comma y? It's just 1 comma 1. That's the x, that's the y. I said don't overthink it. Okay. I'll even tell you on this one. I'm going to go -2 and let's say -3. Then what's this spot called? Well, it's -2 comma -3. That's called rectangular coordinates. That's the way you've done it forever. So don't overthink those. But what is it in polar? Hint. This time, you're not going to know the angle. So you have to say it with an arctan. What? Hint. You could set up a tangent for this angle and figure out what that is with inverse tangent. All right, how about this? One thing at a time. Find out this side, and that's r, and that'll be easy. Okay, everybody figure out the third side of a right triangle. For Pete's sakes, you're in honors. Pre-calc, you can do that. FK, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So what is it? Square root of 13 is correct. Raise your hand if you had square root of 13. Awesome. Then that's the r. What's the angle? I don't know. So what you do is you use what you would have done on the calculator to get the angle. What would you have done on the calculator? Before you figured this out, you wouldn't have wanted to have to figure that out. To get this angle, you'd have probably used these two, and hint you to use tangent somehow. Inverse tan. What exactly would you have typed into the calculator? Not square root of. And they're not negative because they're going to cancel, so 3 over 2. There you go. That's what you would have typed in the calculator to get that angle. Okay, I'm going to do one more, except this time I'll make the angle a nice one that you already know. Okay? So this kind of sums it all up. If you get this right, you get everything I've been trying to teach you so far about polar. If that's a 30-degree angle in this little triangle, and that side's 2, would you please figure out what this spot is in rectangular, which is the old way, which is just, you just need the X and the Y. And then in polar. You don't have to tell me 5 different ways in polar either, even though you should know there is multiple ways to do it in polar. I'm going to make that a follow-up question to this. Try to find it in X and Y, which is called rectangular. Then find it in polar. And then you're going to be asked this as a follow-up question, how to make this a different way to write the polar that would still be okay. I'm going to pause for a second while you give that a try. Okay, students telling me the answers. They're saying this is negative square root of 3 and this is negative 1, and you are correct. Because we know this one. It's the 1, 2, root 3 triangle with some negatives on there. Most common mistake in circle trig is to forget the negatives, but I hope you're over that by now. Okay. And now, front row, it's LY. Tell me what to do.
For the R2.
R is 2, you're correct. All right, here's 6 pi over 6 plus a little bit more, 7 pi over 6. I like it. Is there other ways she could have written that? Yes. 2 comma negative. Everybody right now figure it out with a negative angle. And then the trickiest one, figure it out with a negative R and a negative angle. Hint, to do that, you need to find this point which does not have a negative R, but find that point over there and reflect it back. So use 2 comma 7 pi over 6 as your starting point, but give me 2 other ways, one with a negative angle and one with a negative R and a negative angle. So the first one has got the negative angle, and that's a different way to say 7 pi over 6, and that's this. It's negative 5 pi over 6. Raise your hand if you had the same as I did on that one. Okay, good. And then the last one, you got to find this point first. I'm telling you, you'll get all twisted up if you don't go find that point, which has both of them being positives just to start with. That means this is a 30. That means this is 2. And so this is 2 comma pi over 6. Raise your hand if you had that right so far. Okay. Now, wait a minute. We need a negative R and a negative theta. What's the negative theta for over there? Negative a whole bunch of pi over 6 is negative 11 pi over 6. And then if I make it 2 over here, then that means over here on this side, this point again, would be negative 2 comma negative 11 pi over 6. Raise your hand if you had that one figured out. Awesome. And you learned everything you needed to know for today. Now let's go and look at the homework for tonight. Everybody find it. I'll tell you which ones to do. I'll pause for a second while we do that. Okay. So we are now ready to look at the homework for tonight. Pausing again for a second. Okay, so here it is in Schoology, and we're going to this one, Intro to Polar, and into the notes. And then starts right here where it says Assignment Day 1. I want you to do those 2, and note the first thing it says is plot the point. By the way, we haven't got much homework in this quarter yet, so get this done. I want to grade some more. Never know when I'm going to be saying, okay, take out your homework or grading it. All right, so where the heck is 2 comma pi over 3? First thing you got to kind of know what direction to go. I need to go pi over 3, which is also known as 60, so it's about like that. How far? 2. So that's the spot right there, 2 comma pi over 3. I've plotted the point. Now what's this other gobbledygook? It's telling you what it wants R and theta to be. Here it wants theta to be positive. Notice it says bigger than 0, right? And it wants R to be less than 0. Ooh, this is the kind where you have to go over here and find the point over there which is 2 comma something else, some other angle, could be negative or positive, and then reflect it back. So this point would be, again, if these are 60-degree angles, if that's 60, then that's 60. So then this is a whole bunch of 60s, also known as pi over 3s. So this would be negative 2 pi over 3. And if you want to reflect it over there, you're going to have to make its r negative, and then it can be over there. That's how to get an answer with a negative r and a negative theta. All right, so this asks you basically for every possible combo, that, or that way to write it in polar. We're only doing 2 of these, this one and this one. Okay, now let's go to the next page. On this page, we can skip the whole page because it's basically a repeat of the last page. So skip that whole page. Now on this page, I want you to do lucky number 13, and it's got the negative r and the negative angle. Remember when you first go there, where's negative 11 pi over 6? It's over here. Do it with a positive r, and then you'll reflect it over to make it negative. So what they're asking for is this point right here is right there. I'm trying to show you it's got its reflected point over here. Find both of them. And what they want is 3 other names for that point right there. Okay, so you're just doing number 13. You may skip number 16. Trying to cut down the repetition for you. In my ideal world, all you'd have would be math homework, and then I'd assign more. But I know you've got other stuff in your life. We're going to do number 37 and number 39. Cancel, cancel, cancel those 3. That keeps it down to a reasonable amount, and you stop there. After that, it's just a game, which we will eventually play. But as I said for today, I'm trying to free up time to get to giving you some time to do corrections on the last test. So that's all I have for you for your assignment for tonight. Get it done. More than most nights, I really recommend going and doing this and understanding it and checking the key and stuff. Why? Because tomorrow I have to teach you the rest of the unit. Extremely short unit. It is. And it's even worse because we had a snow day. And the test was going to be Thursday. What if we push it to Friday? Is that a problem? Yeah, you don't have school Friday. So then we'd be pushing the test to Monday. And then you'd have to study over a long weekend. And you probably wouldn't. And then you'd probably fail the test on Monday. So bottom line, I think we better get this test over with. So I got a lot to teach you tomorrow. So you really need to get your homework done tonight so you aren't lost. If you go into tomorrow lost and then you have a review day and a test, it's not going to go well. But I gave you a reasonable amount tonight. You can do this. Tomorrow's the one that's going to be tougher. Just be caught up when you hit tomorrow. Okay, that's all I have for you for new stuff for today. Now we're going to go over corrections on the last test.